I enjoy coming to work every day knowing that clients are depending on me to guide them through whatever financial needs they have.
Every client we have is different. And so it's really about finding out what's really the most important thing per client.
With financial planning, everything is interconnected. So a comprehensive plan means that you're taking care of income needs now, income needs in the intermediate term, and income needs long term. We'll do an asset cycle portfolio. We'll do a risk-alize test. We'll do a life insurance audit or a life insurance review.
And so when we build a deep relationship with our clients, then we can take a step back and then we can look at different options to help them specifically get to their goals. One of the things I feel our job is as advisors is to introduce strategies to clients that maybe they did not know that they were out there. But it's our our job to come out and say, have you ever thought about this?
And the planning it's not always about income, but a lot of it is also about the legacy. So the element of family is very important to us, and it's important to our clients.
Hello, my name is Steve Jablonski, and welcome to Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush. Today we have a couple different topics that really are commingled together today, and one is, first of all, the stock market, the equity market, and it is almost at all-time highs. It was an all-time high back in September. Second thing is what risk is associated with a market being that high, and then the third thing is what are some general options that people can look for so if they really want to sleep at night, they can do that. So with that, Jeff?
Well, hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. Good to be here. Good to be here on PCTV and the good people at the PCTV Network. And, of course, we've been here now for almost 6 years. Hard to believe. Time flies. But it's nice to be here at the studios right here at Pottstown High School. And, of course, our show is broadcast not only on the local cable here, but also on the PCTV website. And also on our website, which is informedfamily.com. So we're really getting the message out there, and it's good to be here again today for this month's show.
Good. And Jeff, before we dive into it, if you could tell us a little bit about some of the outreach we've had as far as being in publications, and I know you had an article in the Reading Eagle.
So it's been good. When I look back at all we've been able to accomplish over the last 2 years, I had that article in the Reading Eagle, which was good, and then the Kiplinger newsletter I was in twice and interviewed on Enterprise Radio. You were, of course, featured in the Norristown Patch, and our colleague Barry was in Investopedia, and so we've really had somewhat of a good media blitz. In addition to the show we do here on PCTV, and of course we take our show on the road and we do the public seminars at the local some of the local venues, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show.
And when we talk about markets being at all-time high, tell us a little bit about that and maybe some of the risk associated with that.
Well, what I like to say is, this is not your father's stock market. And what I mean by that is, right now the market is at an all-time high. And further, when we look at certain ratios, when we look at, like, there's a Shiller price to earnings ratio, which is at or near an all-time high, and when we couple that with historically low interest rates, it really is a cause for concern, because this is kind of uncharted territory. We've never had, the combination of those two thing. So it's kind of, it's the perfect storm, really.
And have you found it a little more difficult for people to really identify their true risk, because we are in a 10-year bull market, and I mean, are people forgetting about where they're going to be comfortable in the market?
I think so, Steve. I mean, with our clients, we try to use certain tools to temper that. Of course, we have our risk software, which you're going to get into a little bit later. But yeah, so if we look at the slide there up on the screen, shows we're basically showing the S&P 500 over 2 periods of time. We have what we call your father's stock market, which is the 20-year period between 1980 and 1999, which is really an unprecedented bull run, and that was followed by Y2K. You remember Y2K?
Yep.
when everything was supposed to happen, when remember you had everybody went out and bought generators and all the bottled water and all that kind of stuff, and nothing happened. But yet in the stock market, a lot happened.
Yeah.
We hit an all-time high there, and it was kind of the end of the tech run up, and of course 9/11. So the period that we're living in now, the period of the most recent 18 years, has really been a period of volatility. And to your earlier question, we've been on a 10-year bull run. If you look at that chart between 2009 and 2019, the market has been up something crazy. What is it, 250 points or 250% or
well, yeah,
something?
and people forget that back in March of 2009, the S&P 500 was less than 700.
It's less than 700.
And we're about 2,900, almost 2,900 today.
Yeah, so it's grown four times. Yeah, so there is some cause for concern, Steve, because there's that kind of growth, and then like I said earlier, some of these these price to earnings ratios are somewhat out of whack. But there's a lot. I think for the investor who's looking with a shorter term time horizon, there's some tools that we can use to help temper the risk.
And then we look back in September, October, November of last year. We had a bit of a correction, and then
of 2018.
Just recently, yeah. And then it gained it back. So I mean, do you expect more of those big swings?
I think so. I think we're always going to have periods of volatility like that, because we're in a volatile market, and there's things that drive, and we're also in a very reactionary market. So if you look at the fourth quarter of 2018, it was basically October and December when we had a couple things going on there. We had interest rates were adjusted upward slightly, and then we had the government shutdown, among some other economic factors. And yeah, you're always going to have that. And the key is, what's your strategy when that happens? Do you have a long-term strategy? We have some tools that help us work through those markets.
And that's one of the things that I really work with the company is Riskalyze.
Yeah, so Riskalyze, we have found, and of course we've been working with the people at Riskalyze for the last several years, and this is really kind of your area of expertise. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do
Yep.
with our clients to help them manage their risk?
Yep. And yeah, that's a great point, because we look at risk a little bit differently than some of the advisors that are out there that are under the suitable relationship with their clients. And we really look at how far down does a portfolio have to go before a client becomes uncomfortable. And years and years and years around suitability, advisors would ask, there would be a questionnaire. There may be 10 questions, and the first question was, how old are you? And the second question is, when are you going to use the money? And if you were 35 years old and you weren't going to use the money for 30 years, you automatically got put into the aggressive bucket. And then you flip that around, and if you're 65 years old and you're going to use the money in 5 years, you automatically got put in the conservative. And so we try to stay away from that question here and really about how far down does the portfolio have to go before someone feels uncomfortable, because then that'll make them react in ways they shouldn't. And so when we look at this and we look at Riskalyze, and it was based on Nobel Prize winning work, that everybody's assigned a number, and we go through an exercise, and it goes from 1 up to 99, where 1 is very, very conservative. That may equate to a cash or a CD investment or a fixed annuity, and then we go all the way up to 99, and it could be Groupon stock, for example.
How do you come up with the number?
What happens is there's a couple different exercises. One's a very detailed questionnaire. The other is really comparing, if a portfolio goes down a certain amount of dollars, are you comfortable? And then you can adjust till you get a point where you're comfortable with the downside. And so if we wanted kind of a judgment here or something to look at, is the S&P 500 measures about a 73 to 75.
Okay.
Yeah, to give you an idea.
So the broad stock market.
The broad stock market.
Okay.
And so what we do is we'll go through the exercise, we'll find out what someone's risk number is, input the portfolio, and then find out, do we have a match? And because we've been in such a bull market for so long, we find a lot of times that people's true risk tolerance is here, but their portfolio and risk is here. And so that's really something we want to get that back into alignment. And then when we make recommendations, we always want to stay below their true risk number.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, we have a slide where we have a good example of that, where the client scored a 58. So how does that work as far as if they're a 58, what does that mean?
Well, 58 is when we look at it, they're sort of middle of the road in investing, so they can take on, if you want to equate it back to the old traditional conservative, moderate, and aggressive, a 58 would be someone who is more moderate in the middle between stocks and then bonds.
Yeah. But then the volatility there shows that we have an investor with an asset of, let's say, $107,000 there. So we're at a 58. The expectation there is, it looks like that they're going to be able, they can handle risks somewhere between a 20% gain and a 12% loss.
Yes.
That's what their portfolio would translate to.
And the important thing here, Jeff, is that we look at the dollar amount, because when people look at a percentage, it's tough to equate that to this is really what my statement reads. You can say you're down 10% and they don't really care, but when this portfolio goes to $95,000, that's really the level that this person is comfortable with. Anything lower, and they're too risky. Yeah,
they're too risky. And I find that this is a good exercise, because I think people can tend to be less aggressive than they think they are. Mm-hmm. Meaning that if their portfolio goes down by 12%, they may say, I'm okay with that. Yeah. But the reality, if that really happens, they may not be okay with that. There may, we may get the phone call and say, hey, the market's been down. I just opened up my statement. I lost 12%. What do we got to do? So, getting back to your earlier question about the fourth quarter, Steve, and where clients were opening up statements, and if they were fully invested in the market, they might have lost 15% or more, mm-hmm. right? So as we sit here, doing this over a quarter in, we've made back most of that in the first quarter if we stayed fully invested.
Yep.
So a lot of it has to do with time in the market too. It's and because sometimes the time can overcome a lot of the volatility.
And one thing that's interesting with sitting with couples and going through the risk-alize exercise, someone may have $1 million, and if it goes to 999,000, they can't accept that. That's you're not comfortable at all.
Yeah.
And then you have people that if I lose 30%, I'm okay. So, and the next kind of thing, Jeff, here when we talk a little bit about a tornado versus a hurricane, and tell us a little bit about that and how does it equate to financial planning?
Yeah, well, so I didn't know we were going to get into weather forecasting today here, Steve, but it's good that we use this analogy. So we've got, a hurricane. When we get to hurricane season, these news channels they beat the heck out of this stuff, and we know like 2 weeks ahead of time that a hurricane's coming, and we know how far out to sea it is, and where it's they try to project where it's going to land and where the eye is, and they even give it a name, so it's predictable. Or tornado, on the other hand, is very unpredictable. It comes like that. You have almost no preparation for it. It comes, it does its damage, and then that quickly it's gone. And the point is that you have to have a plan, and you can plan for a hurricane. You can't plan for a tornado. So what happened in 2008, for example? You were either planned, you were ready, or you weren't.
And that brings us into the next topic: is if you are planning for a hurricane, what are some of the things we can do to really lower our risk?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of things, and the one thing that you brought up and talked about was the risk-alize, and having a portfolio that has the proper risk, which translates to the proper asset allocation. And what I mean by asset allocation, that's just a mixture of stocks and bonds, and then maybe we fold in some other asset classes, like maybe precious metals, silver and gold, maybe some real estate, that kind of things. The asset allocation is really important. In our practice, so the diversification aspect of it is really, really important. The other point that I want to make, Steve, in our practice is we are big believers in having annuities become part of the overall plan, because the annuities can help solidify and stabilize a portfolio and allow you to take risk with other parts of your portfolio, because the annuities can provide some safer ground.
And a lot of advisors out there will use diversification, but I know we use job descriptions for our assets, and I know that the annuities will come out of a job description. So what does that look like in the practice?
Well, yeah. So you're referring to a system that we use called asset cycle portfolio, where we're cycling through various points in time in an investor's life, where they're using various assets to meet their income needs. And typically, when we're looking at these annuity products, and you can use annuities for a lot of different things, but one of the nice features of the annuity is it can pay if you put an income rider on it or an income benefit on it. It can pay you some income, and oftentimes that's a very important part of the plan with our clients. And then again, it allows other parts of the portfolio to be more fully invested or more invested in the market.
Good. And Let's take it back a little bit. And so this gets down to a lot of the solutions. So what's the process look like when you first meet someone, a potential client?
Well, when we first meet a client or a prospect, there's it's very process driven. So we're going to sit down and we're going to figure out what the needs are, and that's done through a series of meetings and a series of fact finding, if you will. And, we ultimately find out what the goals and objectives are of the plan. And then once we find out what the goals and objectives are of the plan, that allows us to design a financial plan for our clients, and then implement that plan.
And when we go back a couple years ago, there was a lot of talk about what a fiduciary is in this business versus someone who's suitable.
So yeah, that's been a hot topic, and of course, operating in a suitable role means that you're making investment recommendations that are suitable. It meets and that's a fairly low bar in our industry. It's just like it's an investment that it's okay. It's okay. It meets certain standards. But a fiduciary standard, which is the standard that you and I have always operated under, allows us to really act in the best interest of our clients. Like we're going in there and we're doing all the proper things that you would do in that fiduciary capacity, in that capacity to act in their best interest. We're going out and we're finding the best product, the best investment, the best level of risk, the best rate of income, the best liquidity, given all the circumstances that surround the financial plan. It truly makes it suitable.
Yeah.
And to further answer that question, Steve, I believe our independence allows us to do that. So the independent part of it is, if you're an independent advisor, then that really gives you access to a lot of different products and plans and services that truly allow you to act in that fiduciary capacity.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned before that we take the show on the road. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we do take the show on the road, and we're excited we're going to be coming to a venue near you. So we're going to be right here in Pottstown on April the 24th at Lily's Grill right down there on High Street. And then we'll be not too far down the road in Audubon a couple weeks later at Chadwick's. But those workshops, and they're open to the public. So if you're interested in coming, just contact our office for tickets. We have our number and our email address up on the screen. But we talk about topics that are relevant. These workshops, we're going to be talking about retirement, retirement accounts, IRAs, that kind of thing. So that's kind of going back to our roots. That's really how we build our practice with that kind of workshop.
And someone can also call the firm and use this as a sounding board too.
Yeah, so we can offer a second opinion if need be. If you want to, maybe you're working with another advisor, or maybe you're not. Maybe you don't have an advisor. Maybe you're working with one of these direct market type firms, or maybe you just have a 401k at work. And, maybe you need a second opinion. Maybe you're getting ready to retire. Maybe you're looking at Social Security claiming strategies, and, you need another set of eyes. And, you're a good person to do that yourself, Steve, because of your vast and varied background. You've been in the business for the last 24 years, and you have you're a certified financial planner, and, so, there's a lot of credentials that you bring to the table, and we can offer that second opinion.
And to summarize today, market being at all or near all-time highs, people really being in a risky situation. I know you can't give specific advice, but where we are now, what would you say for people?
Well, I think it's important to have a plan because we don't know what the future brings.
Yeah.
As we sit here and tape this today, we don't know what the next year is going to bring. If you and I had to sit down and say, what's the Dow going to be a year from now? We would probably both get it wrong because we don't know that. We don't have that crystal ball. It's important for people to have a plan. I mean, if you have a plan, then you can weather almost any storm. So that's like really the most important thing. We touched on the annuity aspect of it just very, very briefly, and there's a lot, and I kind of want to circle back to that a little bit because we have the fixed annuities, we have the indexed annuities, we have the variable annuities. So they're all different types of annuities that serve different purposes. And maybe we can bring that slide back up, the annuity slide. So that our viewers can see that. But a fixed annuity, that just pays an interest rate.
Yep.
Okay. The indexed annuity is going to pay based on the performance of an underlying index, and they've become very popular because you have protection of principal, and the growth on those are tied to an underlying index, usually a stock index. And then we have a variable annuity, which is based on, based on an underlying investment, which is stocks and bonds. And typically the annuity doesn't have good liquidity. So we want to make sure that you have other assets that do have adequate liquidity so that you're not unduly strapped into a strategy. So I just wanted to circle back on that a little bit. I think we're out of time here today. So it's been a good show, Steve. You did a good job putting this together for us here today, and it's good to be here on PCTV. And we're going to sign off. This is Financially Speaking.